You know what the number one lie in personal finance is? It's not about debt. It's not about credit scores. It's this idea, this deeply embedded American idea that if someone has money, you'll be able to tell. The guy with the Rolex, he's got $180,000 in credit card debt. The woman who packed her lunch and drove the same 2014 Camry for 9 years, she retired at 51 with $3.2 million. Nobody saw it coming. Not her coworkers, not her neighbors, not even her sister. We have been trained by Instagram, by TV, by every car commercial ever made to confuse the performance of wealth with the reality of it. And that confusion is costing the average American hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime. Today we're fixing that. Because once you learn to read the real signs, the quiet ones, you'll never look at money the same way again. Hello everyone, this is Wealth Nation, where we cut through the noise, skip the flexing, and talk about what building real money actually looks like in America. If you're new here, hit subscribe. This is the kind of channel you find once and never leave. So Kylie, I want to start somewhere a little uncomfortable. When you think about the wealthiest person you personally know, not a celebrity, not someone on TV, a real person in your actual life, what do they look like?
Honestly, nothing like I expected. She's this woman who lives in my neighborhood. She drives an older car. She brings her own coffee to things. She's never talked about money once that I can remember.
And how did you find out she had money?
She casually mentioned at a block party that she'd just paid cash for a beach house. Like, not bragging, just mentioned it.
That right there is sign number one, and it's the most counterintuitive one on the list. Secretly wealthy people drive old, boring cars.
I've heard this before, but it still feels too simple, right?
Here's why it's not simple. The average monthly car payment in America right now is over $700. $700 a month. That's $8,400 a year before insurance, before maintenance, before the value drops the second you leave the lot. Wealthy people have done that math. They know the car is a liability, not an asset, not a status symbol, a liability.
So the flashy car is actually the tell that someone isn't wealthy?
More often than not, yes. The research on this is actually pretty consistent. The Millionaire Next Door, it's one of the most famous studies done on American millionaires, found that the most common vehicle owned by people with over $1 million in net worth was a used pickup truck. Not a Porsche, a used truck.
That's kind of insane to actually hear out loud.
And if you're watching this right now, thinking about your own car payment, drop it in the comments. Tell me the number, because I promise you are not alone, and we're going to talk about what to do about it. Sign number 2, and I want your honest reaction to this one. Secretly wealthy people almost never talk about money.
Okay, that one actually hits close to home.
Walk me through that.
My dad. I'm only just now connecting these dots, but my dad never once talked about what he made, what things cost, what he had in savings, nothing. And they used to think it was just because he was private. But he was always calm. Like, when things got hard, he never panicked.
That calmness is a signal. Because here's what actually happens when you have real financial security. Money stops being a personality trait. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to perform it. It's just there, working quietly in the background. The people who talk about money constantly, usually they're either struggling with it or they're trying to convince someone, including themselves, that they have more than they do.
Gut punch, honestly.
Sign number 3 is where things start to get really uncomfortable for most people. Secretly wealthy people are obsessed with time, not stuff.
Like, how do you mean?
Have you ever noticed that the wealthiest people you know are weirdly protective of their schedule? They'll pay for the direct flight without hesitating. They'll hire someone to handle the thing that would cost them a Saturday. They've already done the calculation. Their time is worth more than whatever they'd be saving.
Versus driving 45 minutes to save $12 on groceries.
Exactly. And I'm not saying that's wrong if you genuinely can't afford the alternative. But when someone who could afford the convenience is still trading hours to save dollars, that's not frugality. That's scarcity thinking wearing the mask of frugality. Those are very different things.
I feel personally called out right now.
Here's what most Americans don't realize. Time is the only asset you absolutely cannot earn back. Money you can rebuild. Time is a one-way door. The wealthy figured that out early. Sign 4. And this one surprises people every time. Secretly wealthy people ask surprisingly basic questions.
Basic how?
They're not afraid to look uninformed. They'll ask, "Can you explain that fee to me?" They'll say, "I don't understand this clause. Walk me through it." They're not performing competence. They're genuinely trying to understand. And that willingness to ask the supposedly dumb question has saved them thousands, sometimes millions, over a lifetime.
Versus someone who just nods and signs because they don't want to look stupid.
Which is exactly how people get destroyed by financial products they never actually understood. Adjustable rate mortgages, whole life insurance policies nobody explained properly, mutual funds quietly loaded with fees eating your returns for 30 years.
I'm in that last category. I have a 401k from my last job that I just left there. I don't even know what's in it.
We're coming back to that because the fee conversation is one I need to have with you. Hold that thought. Sign 5. Secretly wealthy people are weird about recurring expenses.
Weird how?
They audit them constantly. They know exactly what they're paying every month, every subscription, every membership, every insurance premium, and they will cut something they haven't used in 60 days without a second thought. No emotional attachment, just math.
I have 11 subscriptions I forgot I even had. One of them I haven't opened since 2022.
11?
11.
The average American household is paying for services they don't use to the tune of $200 a month, $2,400 a year, just quietly drained. And here's the thing, that's not even the big money leak. That's just the visible one.
What's the big one?
We're getting there. Sign 6 first. Secretly wealthy people have an unusual relationship with status and praise.
Like, they don't care what people think?
More than that, they genuinely don't need you to know. They're not posting the vacation. They're not name-dropping where they stayed. They're indifferent to whether you're impressed. And this isn't performative humility. It's that the internal scorecard has completely replaced the external one. At some point, they stopped caring what the neighborhood thinks their life is worth and started caring about what their actual net worth is.
That's such a mindset shift. Especially now, with social media, we're just conditioned to broadcast everything.
And every time you broadcast something you bought, you're doing two things that quietly hurt you. 1, you're creating social pressure to maintain that level. 2, you're training your brain to get dopamine from the reaction instead of from the actual financial progress. That's a loop that keeps people looking rich and being broke. Sign 7. And this one always gets people. Secretly wealthy people have the most boring financial strategies you've ever heard.
Boring how?
Index funds, rental property, maxed 401k. Slow, compounding, completely unexciting things that work. They're not chasing the hot stock. They're not pivoting into crypto every time something trends on Twitter. They found what works and they stayed there.
Okay, my dad literally has a spreadsheet he's been updating since 1997.
And I would bet that spreadsheet has quietly done more for your family than any hot tip ever could. Here's the statistic that should live in the back of every American's mind. Over any given 20-year period, roughly 90% of actively managed mutual funds underperform the S&P 500. 90%. And the entire financial services industry is built on convincing you that someone out there can beat the market. The quietly wealthy stopped playing that game a long time ago.
That's terrifying. And freeing at the same time.
Sign 8. Secretly wealthy people are comfortable with silence in a financial conversation.
What does that look like?
Someone pitches them a deal, a product, an investment, a limited time offer, and they don't feel pressure to respond quickly. They sit with it. They ask to think about it. They're not filling the silence to avoid awkwardness. And that pause has probably saved them more money than any single investment decision.
Because they're not making reactive decisions.
Reactive is almost always expensive. The FOMO buy, the pressure close, this offer expires tonight. And the quietly wealthy person says, then it expires tonight. And they mean it.
I am the worst with a countdown timer. I will buy anything.
Most people are, because urgency is engineered. It's designed specifically to short-circuit rational thinking. Okay, sign 9. And this is the one most people underestimate. Secretly wealthy people are intentional about who they spend time with financially.
Like birds of a feather?
More intentional than that. Your financial outcome is heavily shaped by your 5 closest relationships. Not because wealth is contagious, but because financial norms are. If everyone around you is financing new cars and going on vacation using buy now, pay later, that starts to feel normal. If everyone around you is maxing their Roth IRA and talking about their investment property, that starts to feel normal too.
That's actually uncomfortable to hear.
Why?
Because I think I know which group I've been in. 2 years ago, I had this conversation with a friend who was panicking because her tax refund was smaller than expected and she was counting on it for rent. And I realized I'm doing the same thing. One unexpected expense away from a real problem. And we were just keeping each other company in that.
That's honest. And recognizing the environment is the first step to changing it. You don't blow up your friendships. But you do have to be intentional about where you're getting your financial norms from.
I started listening to different podcasts, reading different things, and it genuinely started to shift how I thought about money.
Which is exactly sign 10, and we've been circling it this whole conversation. Quietly wealthy people treat financial education like an ongoing practice, not a one-time event.
Not just reading one book and thinking you figured it out.
It's not a moment, it's a posture. It's the person who's had the same boring index fund strategy since they were 25 and still reads every year, still learns, still adjusts. Not chasing the new thing, just consistently, quietly informed. Kylie, of the 10 signs we went through today, which one landed hardest for you?
The time one. Number 3. I've always thought about money as the thing I had or didn't have, but I've never thought about my time as being financially valuable. I've been spending it like it's free. It's not free.
That reframe right there changes people's lives. Because money you can make more of. Time is the one-way door.
I keep thinking about all the Saturdays I spent doing things that weren't moving me forward. I can't get those back. But I don't have to keep spending the next ones the same way.
And that is exactly where someone starts becoming quietly wealthy. Not the stock, not the app, not the one financial hack. The decision to take your time and your attention seriously. Here's what I want everyone watching to hold on to today. The 10 signs we talked about aren't just about spotting who has money. They're a blueprint. They're telling you exactly what the behavior of real wealth looks like in practice. And the most powerful thing about this list? Not one of these requires you to be born rich. Every single one is a choice you can make starting today.
I feel like I've been looking at this backwards my whole life. Trying to look wealthy instead of trying to be wealthy.
That's not just you, Kylie. That's most of America. And saying it out loud is the shift. Because the moment you stop performing it and start building it, everything changes. Kylie, thank you for being real today. This conversation matters.
Thank you for not letting me off the hook. I actually needed this.
For everyone watching, if this hit differently than you expected, that's the point. Real wealth looks boring from the outside. It's calm, it's patient, it's consistent, and it is absolutely available to you. Subscribe if you want more of this. Share it with someone who's been measuring wealth in all the wrong ways. And if you do one thing today, just one, go find that old 401k and check the fees. That single move might be worth more than anything else you do this week.